Welcome to Stories of a Volunteeraholic podcast. I'm your guest host, Scooter, aka the Funky Grandpop, here to interview my friend, my ace, my partner, and the true host of Stories of a Volunteeraholic, Miss Amy Tiemeyer. What's up, Amy? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited to have you.
I get to do this. This is big for me. This is real special because not only is this one of my best friends, but this is her first book, and it is exciting. And she's a big volunteeraholic, not to say the least, right? I've always been on her about this. I've clowned her about this, just so y'all know. But the fact that she turned this in a book, it's making me feel some kind of way because now I got to eat my words, right? Like I got to be humble now and give praise because you made it happen, man. How you turn volunteering into a lifestyle? Let's start there. Let's go there. How did you turn this into, now not the book, but into a lifestyle?
I think it was following my passions, seeing things that, ways that I could improve things. And, I think you taught me a lot about volunteering. And I, have enjoyed volunteering alongside of you for years, since probably 2008, something like that.
Yeah, it's been a minute.
And I think volunteering became a lifestyle for me when I realized that for my own even mental health, it was a really great way to find your purpose and to enjoy life. It sounds weird, but that's why.
So what put you on the path as far as like, okay, this is my first volunteering, like this was going to be my mission? Because I guess it wasn't a mission at first, right? So when it started out, was it just you volunteering like at the local Boys and Girls Club, or?
I always feel like I was raised in a volunteering household.
Okay.
Like my mom and dad volunteered. My mom was, I think they call it in PTA, the Golden Acorn Award. My dad volunteered extensively at his church. My grandmother crocheted blankets for babies at Mary Bridge Children's Hospital.
Right.
And so I saw it modeled in all sorts of ways growing up. And it was an expectation from my family. Okay. And I always share this story that my dad told me when I joined the Army: volunteer for everything that you want, which is very different. Normally people don't volunteer for anything.
That is not the advice I got.
Right? Okay. So he said volunteer for everything that you want, because when you're seen as a volunteer, you're doing the things that you want.
Right.
And you're not doing the things you don't want. And so I always give this example. I was stationed at Fort Drum, New York, home of the Frozen Chosen, and I was a private. Went from E1 to E4 there, and never shoveled snow. And if you ever were stationed at Fort Drum, you know how huge that statement is.
Huge, huge.
And it was because I was always doing other projects with command, with that I was more interested in. And so when it came to the things that I really didn't like, they didn't look to me.
Okay.
And I think that also made me realize, little by little, that, that's kind of the secret sauce.
All right.
And
Okay. Well, before we get into the book, because I got a couple more questions, and for the haters and the naysayers that's out there, because I know you're going to have some folks that's going to be like, Volunteeraholic, she sounds like she just like getting taken advantage of. Is that a thing? Do people like to try to take advantage of the fact that you volunteer all the time?
I think so. I don't frame it that way. I do. I see it as a honor when I'm seen as a subject matter expert, or a connector. But it has taught me how to say no, or how to say sure if. Like, I'll do it if you do this.
Okay.
And I think you and Candy taught me reciprocity better than anyone else. And those are really good lessons.
Right.
And so I don't, very rarely do I feel like somebody is there just to try to take advantage of me. But even then, if there's a greater good, I might do it.
Y'all hear that, haters? When she said, I'm an expert on stuff. I don't volunteer on things I'm not an expert at. Right there, I had to give it to them because somebody out there is going to be hating from a distance. They are, right? But that is dope. So, what was your first volunteering gig?
Growing up, probably volunteering at the church, like doing nursery duty, things like that, was probably my youngest volunteer gig. And sometimes struggling families in the church I would offer to babysit for free. And I, as a child, we're back in the day.
Right.
You know, I was a babysitter at like 11
when that was
and 12.
A job.
Well, and you do it young back, at our age. I did it at 11 and 12 years old.
Right.
And which is now like barely legal age to stay home by yourself.
Right. But back then, we did it.
Right. Yeah. And but what I was going to say is, as a kid, I didn't realize the impact that can do for a single mom or a struggling family to not have to pay a babysitter, different things like that. And
okay, so you said something, and I'm going to chime in with it, like, because it's volunteer, right? Like, so of course, me being me, that means free, right? Like, so you're not getting any income from this whole volunteer thing.
No.
Okay. Let me say that again. That means free.
Right. It does.
See, I'm not saying it don't translate in my mind, but I just have a hard time taking that in. So you're doing this for free for small businesses, big businesses, anybody?
Kind of anybody. I would say that I do things for free more for friends than for organizations. Like, and I'll give you an example. When I first got involved in the Travis Manion Foundation, who I work for now, so it's no longer free for me with TMF. But in the beginning, the only reason why I got involved, because I felt like I had enough things going on, was because a girlfriend, Charlene, talked me into it. I always say she kind of bamboozled me. But I do projects for people that I care about. And then I usually end up finding out more about an organization or a different group, and I can continue or do more based on that. But it's usually relationships.
So I got to say this. Like I said, I've known Amy for quite some time, one of my best friends. And I used to be on her about not saying no, because you used to volunteer a lot back then. I used to be like, yo, you got to say no, you got to say no. So you said now it's helped you to say no. How has that structured in? How did that go from, okay, I'm a volunteeraholic, but I also can say no?
Through failure. Okay. Remember when I said, like, so I don't volunteer now for projects I have no experience in. Okay. Unless I'm just a worker bee. Like, I'm there to set up chairs or clean off tables, but here again, those things I know how to do. I'm not going to organize an event that I've not had. I'm not going to agree to organize an event for somebody I care about with zero experience and probably all the expectation in the world.
So you're not volunteering for like a rap concert?
That's right. That is right. I can help out, but I'm so much better at saying, this is my skill set. Okay. I can help you build a budget. I can help you talk about volunteer engagement. I can help you strategize different places to find people, things like that. But you're right, I would not be the person that needs to find the artists. Gotcha. Or know different things within the music industry, which is incredibly nuanced. You've taught me that. Yeah. And so I wouldn't walk into that arena willy-nilly. Like, it would be to support you because you were doing something
with the music.
Right.
Gotcha.
And you fully know my capacity or lack thereof.
I do. Well, let's get into the book. So again, this is the book right here, Stories of a Volunteeraholic. But it says one person's journey of moving the needle of impact. So how did you get, because this is actually my first time seeing the book, y'all. So as a friend, I am blown away because I've been waiting to see it, right? She kept this close to her chest. I didn't get a chance to see it. But now I'm seeing it, and I'm loving the cover. I'm loving how it's set up, because if you know Amy, as you get to know Amy through these podcasts, you will understand that this cover makes so much sense, right? But so how did you get to this? How did you get to the design aspect? And then we're going to go and get into the book. But how did you get to, like, this is what it is, this is what I'm going with as the cover? So
I actually got picked up by Fulton Publishing, and so they worked with a design team. And I had said, one of the things that a lot of people say about me is that I go a million miles an hour.
Right.
And Scooter has driven with me, and he knows.
Yes.
I like to get to places fast. I'd like to say safely, but very fast.
Very quick.
And so, I just thought I like simple covers that
Right.
kind of say it all easily.
Okay.
You can get lost in the sauce of art and different things like that. So I just really wanted to keep it simple. And so they did that for me. I didn't design it other than give them the idea of a speedometer.
Well, shout out to Fulton Publishing first off, but what put you on the path of creating this particular book as far as, okay, now you're volunteering, you know that this is something that is your passion and you love to do it. Now you're like, okay, let me create a book. What put you on that path to say, let's create a book?
Well, that was actually is from a networking group, trying to figure out, like, okay, so I really think that more people should get involved and volunteer, but I also feel like people do it, don't understand where to go or how to get involved, what to do, all these kinds of things. And we are so, if it bleeds, it leads. Kind of society that I wanted to get more good stories out there, but I wanted this book to be about the average person's story, not like a huge board or how to fundraise or how to run a nonprofit. I want this to be like a series of books that are stories of normal people doing a thing that brings them a lot of joy, and it showcases all sorts of charities.
Okay.
All sorts of people getting involved in their communities. Because I think it's, part of me says I think like a lot more people should volunteer, but I also think there's a lot of people who do volunteer that nobody realizes. How many nonprofits run solely on the volunteer model and what they're accomplishing in the community and different things like that. And I felt like, I got really worn out during COVID on humanity and what we were looking at and who was getting the limelight.
Right. So you said series, so there's going to be more?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So will each book take on a story of that about you volunteering, or is it more like, break down the book for me? What is it? Are these all stories of your volunteering?
So this one is to begin with. It was funny stories, impact stories, different things like that. But I say over and over in the book, I was not there alone.
Right.
There was a whole team with every single thing, from the zombie apocalypse to even working on a Christmas tree farm, all those kinds of things. And so the subsequent books, I want to have like one or two of my stories in an entire book and have it all about other people. And they could, what's kind of up in the air is it could be a theme book. Like it could be Wear Blue, Run to Remember, all sorts of people who volunteer for that organization, that book. And then maybe like part of the proceeds go to Wear Blue. And then the next one could be the Travis Manion Foundation, or the next one could be Dash Center, stories of a Volunteeraholic at the Dash Center. Even though it's gone away, we have all those relationships.
True.
And that could be fun.
Have you thought about making this your own thing? Like maybe Amy now runs the Volunteerholic Center, and you have a bunch of volunteers that now fall under you. Is that like something that you maybe thought about, or
I haven't. I never thought about doing something like that. I like that. I know there's different organizations out there that are kind of like an Angie's List. Like these are the ones that I like, and different things like that. And I don't want to take a piece of pie from anything. I like the idea of getting everybody's stories out and trying to, like I said, create a better narrative for our communities and our culture.
So when I read this, what am I going to get out of this? Am I going to learn more about you, more about volunteering, or a little bit of both? What am I going to get? What's the meat and potatoes of stories of a Volunteeraholic?
So what I'm hoping you get out of that is, yes, you'd learn some more about me, some ideas on volunteering. I even talk about like the ethics of how you should show up as a volunteer, because I believe how you do anything is how you do everything.
Right.
And then I'm
Hold on,
hoping
say that again. That's one more time.
how you do anything is how you do everything.
Message. I just had to get that out there, right? Because that's saying something right there. I like that.
And then my biggest hope is that you're inspired, that, like, oh, I was thinking about doing this event that would help these kids or these people or even these animals, and now I'm all inspired. Amy showed me, that it's possible. And I also talk about you don't have to have a nonprofit.
Right.
You see a need, you can fill a need.
Right.
And, and I talk about my grandma who crocheted the blankets. She didn't do it with a nonprofit or a program.
Right.
I also feel like a lot of people jump to starting nonprofits when there's other nonprofits available that could be utilized, and you could do something different, like writing a program.
Right.
Like you did.
I did. For those that don't know, I did create my own program called The Art of Hip Hop years ago when we were talking about the Dash Center. And that's actually how I met Amy. So Amy and I go back, like way back. But we met through a place called the Dash Center that used to exist here in Tacoma. And it was huge back then. It was a performing arts studio. I'm just giving y'all some background story. It was a performing arts studio, and I created this program called The Art of Hip Hop, teaching the culture and history of hip hop to youth, because I just felt like the youth today were lost, And then Amy came in actually bringing her son, and her son took my program, and that's how we met. And back then, she was volunteering at the center. And since then, our friendship has grown, but to see her still stick with because I'm not gonna lie, I really thought the volunteer thing was gonna be like, okay, I volunteered once or twice, I'm out. But she stayed with it. And that's what amazes me so much about this book, and why I'm in love with the fact that she did this, because I've watched it. Like, I was there from the conception, of the ideas. But to see it turn into this, right? I wasn't there when she made the book. I was there when she was living the life. So to see you doing this now just makes me feel good in my heart, really. But I'm so proud of you, to see you do this. But I want to talk about these other books. So is like you have capped out a number, or is it just going to be one of these, as I feel it, I'm going to pump them out type deal?
As I feel it, I'm going to pump them out.
Okay.
And I've thought about it. Like I've asked probably 2 people to write a chapter, past guests.
Okay.
And I've decided that there's 2 ways. Like if you're a writer. And I will say, like, if somebody had a story, like, oh, we did this great project, it was so much fun.
Right.
And also, this was an ultimate fail. As long as you're not throwing shade on a nonprofit, because that's not the point.
Right.
But we learn through failure, oftentimes more than success. So if you have something from a project that would be beneficial for others to hear, I would love that. But if you're not a writer, then I would write your story for you and you could edit it. If you are a writer, you could write it and then I'll edit it.
Okay, I'm going to put this out here real quick. The Amy Tiemeyer Volunteeraholic Association. Now, what that is, I'll just put this out here. I'm making it up as we go right now. But what it's going to be is Amy's going to put together a team, her own warehouse, and she'll rent out her volunteers. That way we turn the volunteer thing into actual, a money thing too, right? And then other companies like Microsoft and stuff, we need volunteers to set up. Because a long time ago, I actually went out to an event that Microsoft had did. And I was like, wow, and it was a lot of workers that had volunteered, but the workers were complaining. They were like, oh, we don't want to be out here all this time. But imagine if there was an organization that actually had a group of volunteers that they could just enlist, for a fee of whatever, maybe to help with the nonprofit itself. So it wouldn't actually go to so they could still be volunteers, So it wouldn't look like, okay, they're doing this for money as much as it would be, we're doing it for the love of doing the volunteer work. I think that would be dope.
Possibly. It's a little complicated.
I'm saying, I'm trying to get it out there.
I'll reflect on it.
Book, then warehouse. I'm just saying. Get some Amy Tiemeyer bobbleheads is going around volunteering. So, in the book, what's one of your favorite stories?
Oh, I would have to say the Zombie Apocalypse 5K. That was one of my favorite ones.
Okay.
And then I think there's a story about the Dash Center. So you're in that book.
Okay. So breakdown of Zombie Apocalypse. How did that become a thing where it made it to the book? How did the story make it to the book?
I think just because it was a lot of fun and it was unique.
Okay.
It wasn't the traditional story of just working at a food It was, I think also, it was my idea. So I was working for a credit union and a part of something called AUSA, which is the Association of the U.S. Army. They were trying to engage with younger soldiers from JBLM, but engage with younger soldiers. And so I came up with the idea that if we did a 5K, like when you think of veteran service organizations, and AUSA is actually considered a military service organization, so it's while you're serving and once you retire or get out. But we were supposed to have things for different time periods of their career. And so the junior ones were the ones that just there wasn't anything that was interesting to young soldiers that AUSA was doing.
Okay.
And that's very common for service organizations. Right. And so that's where, at first I wanted to have like a geriatric one, like just really make fun of the old people in the group. And they're like, no, ma'am.
You can't do that, right? Bunch of old people in Walker, we can't stand these volunteers.
Right. So then my kids were into zombies. I don't know what movie came out that year or whatever, but I was like, what about a zombie apocalypse 5K? And if you ever do 5Ks, one of the biggest costs is actually a timing system. Well, if you do a zombie apocalypse 5K, you don't have to have a timer because you're being chased.
You're trying to get out of there.
And, you know, the route is different.
Okay.
And one of the things I learned is everybody really liked the idea. So I had a construction company that put like dead bodies in the woods and stuff like that. Wow. Pallets with blood all over it. Like I actually had to tell the park system, like we had a sign that, you know, this is what we're doing, because if you didn't know what we were doing, it could be very frightening.
So let me ask you this. Because you're a volunteer, right? Because I'm listening to how you said you had the construction company. Do other people feel the need to help and volunteer as well? Like, did the construction company volunteer their time?
Yep.
And that's dope.
Yeah, like I have been very blessed by companies that are like, what are you doing? And I have walked out of places with $2,000 worth of gear for a fundraiser or different things like that. And I think I truly believe, like, my one thing that I have is my reputation.
Wow, that's dope.
And so I have been very, very lucky that people believe in me. And I would say, like, even where we are today at the Pine and Moss.
Right.
And being able to, and just friends that are like, I will do this for you. I will do this for you, and this for you, and this for you. Pick up the basket at 8 p.m., you know?
Do you think that this is an age thing? Like, it sounds very, like, it's dope for people in our age group, right? But what about somebody young that might want to do this? Let's say, like, the 21 and up. Like, do you think they could find, like, a spot in the Volunteeraholic world? Or?
I do. And I actually have taught a course that talks about volunteer motivations.
Okay.
Because people are motivated by different things. And so a younger person might be more motivated to volunteer because they're looking for experience that could help their career. And that's a very viable and good reason to volunteer.
Right.
And I do think, like, it changes through your life. So once you get the experience, you're not necessarily needing to volunteer for that.
Okay.
So you might change to a different volunteer area that brings you more purpose and joy. Or you might volunteer. Volunteering is should be a safe place to meet people.
Okay.
So, you know, coming out of COVID, so many people were afraid of other people.
Right.
Volunteering can do that for them. But I want to say one thing. One of the questions that I ask when I'm hosting is, in the state of Washington and Oregon, I know for sure, I don't know about every state, it is mandated to volunteer 10 hours a year in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade.
I am so glad I grew up on the East Coast. That you have to? That's mandatory? What?
So it creates that, okay, so if it's mandatory, is it volunteering? That's voluntolding, right? And I
is that
wonder,
like a grade thing? Like, you have to, like, in order to grad, it's like in order to graduate type thing, or is that?
So I don't know the entire policy.
Okay,
I know that this is what teachers and coaches have said, that
Right.
kids are supposed to volunteer for 10 hours a year. But that's a barrier, right? Like when you think of some of the kids that we've worked with through the
Right.
years, that could be a really big barrier, especially if you have to work.
Right.
You have family responsibilities, different things like
Sure.
that. So I don't know, and I don't know if like to graduate high school you have to have 40 years total, and it doesn't matter that you didn't do 10 hours in the 9th grade or the 11th grade, you did 20 in the 10th and the 12th or whatever, or 40 in the 12th. But I do think, I wonder if that puts a bad taste in kids' mouths about volunteering because they're being told to.
I think it definitely will. I know for me, just hearing it, I would be like, well, I gotta volunteer? Like, because you've turned it into a lifestyle, you know, but for somebody that's not thinking like that, I know that's gotta just, you know, kind of put your panties in a bunch, you know what I mean? Like, you really gotta be like, wait a minute, I gotta volunteer? But I guess you would find something that you're into and then go that route.
That's what I think is the challenge of it.
Right.
Or the concern is that it's, will a kid lean back and go, hey, let me find this area that I like? Because that's the whole point of volunteering in my mind,
Right.
is that you find your joy in it. Like it is something you're interested in. So whether it's volunteering to set up music for a nonprofit that works with music because you want to have a music career or something like that. I don't know that you think this is what I'm going to do for school.
So is it always nonprofits that you're volunteering for, or can it be for a for-profit as well?
To me, it has been for a person, not necessarily for a
specific organization.
Right.
Okay.
Like I haven't volunteered for Amazon.
Right. Okay.
I'd have to understand what the impact was.
Okay.
Not to say that I wouldn't, but that scenario hasn't really.
So when you're
presented itself.
volunteering, but you're volunteering with a purpose. So you're volunteering more like you said, the impact. So you're looking for your volunteer work to look a certain way or to be received a certain way?
So for me, I volunteer in passion projects.
Okay.
Because the whole goal for me is when you volunteer, you need to walk away and go, oh, that was awesome. That was so much fun.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right? But I will caveat, like right now I'm on the board of a credit union, and I am there to understand how money works and where policies come from. And I don't necessarily, I won't do it forever. It is not necessarily my joy volunteering position.
Right.
But love of learning is one of my biggest top character strengths. And so I want to learn so that I can educate other people down the road. And so I'm not quite sure how it's going to pan out, but it's because I want to be able to help more people in different areas.
Do you look specifically for nonprofits that are under areas that you're interested in?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
I do.
For me, I'd be looking for like a comic book nonprofit. And then I could just be like, okay, that's what they're doing, right? Spider-Man nonprofit? Yeah, I'm volunteering there.
Right? but literally, yes.
Okay. All right.
And especially and that comic books teach reading better than almost any other type of literature.
Facts.
So therefore, that could be an amazing nonprofit to get kids to writing different things like that. You
creating stories, open up minds.
Right?
Okay.
You could do it either as a program or a nonprofit.
Look at Amy infecting me with her Volunteeraholic stuff. Look at that. I'm about to go get some Spider-Man friends. That's what's up. So now that you've done, so what is the length of time you've been volunteering? You started when?
When I was a kid, so way too long ago.
But I mean, officially, when was it like, okay, this is before the book, but when you said, okay, this is where I'm going to start volunteering as a thing?
I would have to say, actually not so long ago. I want to say I thought I came up with the word Volunteeraholic
Right.
back in around 2016, 2017 is when I first started using it. But my very first guest shared with me that there's a Golden Girls episode, and they use the word Volunteeraholic, and so that was way before 2017. So I will stand corrected. I did not create the word, but I have used it extensively.
But you've made it famous. There
Right.
you go.
So since 2017.
Okay.
And so I think realizing the impact and power volunteering has had on myself and my life, and designing the life I want to design for me,
Right.
probably was since 2017, where I was like, this is where I think a lot of people miss. Like, I have met so many super rich people who are super unhappy.
Right.
Like, and that's nuts to me. Like, we think of the things that are hard in life,
Right.
Finances. I want to go on this trip. I can't,
Yes.
do the Kevin Hart. So the way my bank account works and all that kind of stuff, and to be truly unhappy.
Right.
But then you're going to fuss at me, not you, Scooter, about I need to charge, I need to do this, I need to do that. But charging hasn't made your life good.
Right. You got all this money and you're miserable.
Right. Volunteering has made my life good.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Would you say that it's changed your life?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been in places I never would have been in had it not been for volunteering. Met people I never would have met.
Just off volunteering?
Yeah.
Have you met famous people, like real famous people?
I have.
Wow.
But here's the funny thing, because you know me, I don't speak sports. I don't pay attention to, so somebody has told me after the fact who they were.
Okay. All right. So I'm like, and who are you? And he's like, well, I'm Barack Obama.
Well,
like I never knew you before. No.
I met John Cena. Didn't really realize who he was.
Okay.
I met because I'm on staff with Merging Vets and Players.
Right.
I've met Randy Couture, and I knew who Randy was.
Right.
Nate Boyer knew who he was. But there was another guy who apparently plays for the Yankees. Had no clue.
No clue.
No clue. And it was at a gala, and so I probably met a lot more people.
Right.
And
I can see you now. Can you please just move out my way?
No,
I'm
I was
Jeter.
selling raffle tickets for and I'm like, would you 5 for 25 or 20 for 100? Let me know what you want to do. And I didn't know who anybody was. And so, but I also feel like I value the kids and the people who are in my world
Right.
more than celebrity. And so it's, so that's important to me. Like, somebody shared once that we can hold only about 150 names in our head.
Right.
And I don't know, I haven't researched that to know how valid that is. But if that's true, I want the kids that I'm working with, I want those names.
Gotcha.
And my friends who will open up a space for me or do a thing with me more than a celebrity who will never know me.
Right. So for you, it is all about the passion of volunteering. How do you get yourself out there for people to say or to ask you to be their volunteer? Well, right now I know it's like a lot of friends, but because I'm sure other businesses or companies have reached out to you. So how does that happen? Is it just word of mouth? Or
Right now it's word of mouth. I think that's one of the reasons for this podcast. It's one of the biggest reasons for the book, that friends were like, Amy, you got to write your stories, because it's hard for other people to understand where you're coming from without context.
Right.
And then, and like I said, both the podcast and the book is for the volunteer. It's not that I wouldn't recommend it to a board, but it's not who the book was written to. The book really is written to the volunteer. Like, I want you to feel inspired and excited about what you do.
Okay. So if you had to say to a young volunteer, someone trying to get started, right, and they've been maybe even like they've shown interest in, let's say it was comic books or something like that, but they kind of didn't get the reception they thought they would get. Because I know it's got to be hard. Like to, it's not going to take off instantly. So what is your advice to that person? Like, they're down now. They tried to do a volunteer situation. It didn't work. Maybe the person was rude to them or treated them a certain way. Like, do you have a standard? Do you set like certain rules? Like, okay, I come in and this is how I'm going to be treated. Or like, do you put that out there?
I say continue to ask.
Okay.
Not just that one organization. Like, we think we could. So, to go back to your comic book program, which could be a nonprofit. But so this would be where you would maybe figure these pieces out. So if you went to, say, Write It 253.
Okay.
And this kid went to them and say, hey, I have this idea. I think we should do this. And somebody was like, I don't know. It doesn't sound that cool. Right? That's
right.
a joy crusher.
Right.
I would recommend that he or she go to other nonprofits that are kid nonprofits and peddle your idea to a couple different people and move forward. Start writing your comic books.
Okay.
So, because you can do it on your own, and then maybe even talk to your school. Like, I went to 3 nonprofits. Nobody was interested in it. This is my proposition, and this is my first copy of a comic book. And maybe the school, for the time that you're doing it, would give you volunteer hours because you're
actually creating something.
And so it's that's the point. Like, don't let other people stop you. Just like in anything else. Cool story, bro. I'm moving forward.
Okay. What is the treatment that you've received as a volunteer? Because I feel like I'm thinking personally that people would get snobby, right? Like, they would instantly, like, you always run into people who want to order you around. Okay, well, she's volunteering, so Amy, do this. Amy, go over here. Is that a thing that people do, or are you more like, okay, hold up, I'm here to volunteer, but here's how Amy works?
No, I'll do pretty much anything. I'll take the trash out. I don't care. But I will say, in some organizations, one of the things that has been challenging is my personal, somebody else not seeing me of value. I'm not an officer. I'm not an officer's wife.
Right.
I went to school later in life. And I'm not a celebrity.
Right.
I'm not an NFL player. I'm not on the big screen by any means.
Yet.
Probably ever. But so that has sometimes limited me, I would say. But here again, it doesn't necessarily bother me.
Right.
And there's been funny moments where, somebody's directing me, not realizing that I'm supposed to be the one kind of in charge, but they're like with the venue or whatever, can you take this trash out and this, and I'll just carry my happy arse out and taking the trash out. And then their boss comes in, Amy, what are you doing? Well, I'm just taking the trash out. Why would you do that?
Because see, that's where it would catch me. Because I would be the person to be like, excuse me, I'm this person. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sometimes but that is me. And that is a part of me. I think why I am not a volunteer holic, because I feel the need to have to put people in their place. You're not going to just come in here and tell me to do something. But because is it the kindness factor that you'll do it, or is it because you're like, you know what, they'll soon see who I am?
I think it's probably a little bit of both. And I value everybody.
Right.
So I don't put myself above somebody who's taking the trash out.
Right.
And so it doesn't bother me that way. But I have been criticized. I'm not presidential enough when I was president of something. I'm not, formal enough because I'm not.
Right.
And I have. When I think what has happened now is I have built some credibility, and now organizations sometimes want to push me forward, and I'm not always that comfortable
with being in the front.
in the front. Like I do. I really like being a worker bee.
Right.
I like being second in command is what I've
Okay.
learned the most. And I feel like other people are kind of ambitious in that way.
Right.
And in order to keep them involved, that is a position I can give up really easy, and I can support you doing it.
Do you feel it's hard to be seen as a volunteeraholic?
Yes.
Okay.
But here's the thing. If you do things the way everyone else does, then you become like everyone else. I've been criticized for the word volunteeraholic, different things like that, and I am just choosing to do things my way, which I guess is the hard way and the long way, but it gets to be still my way.
Hence the book, Stories of a Volunteeraholic, because this is stories about things you've done your way. That's what's up, Amy, man. I really appreciate you inviting me to come and be your host to introduce you to the world in this book. I'm excited for the other series, and hopefully I get my own story in here, but definitely excited to see the other series. Final words, what would you say to anybody that is out there listening to this podcast, watching this podcast? What would you have your final words be for them?
Get involved in your community. Find your joy. Try things.
I like that. Find your joy. Here's someone who took their passion and turned it into a book and also into a lifestyle. And to me, that is the most interesting thing that you can do. And in a world of people creating podcasts and kind of being their own bosses, this is really some boss stuff right here. So my hat's off to you, friend. I am so proud of you and the fact that you were doing this. I love this, and I hope I'm brought back when the next books come out. So that's what's up. I am Scooter, your host, co-host, guest host, all of those hostesses for Stories of a Volunteeraholic, man. And this is my friend Amy Tiemeyer, the creator of it. And again, make sure you get the book. Check out this podcast. This is bananas. Like, I'm sold. I'm sold. I will be volunteering at some comic book store. So when you catch me out there, know that's what's up. I am Scooter. And again, thank you, Amy Tiemeyer.